Unpopular opinion, but
Unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion.
You're listening to Unpopular Opinion, a podcast for professionals from all walks of life who want to hear success stories from innovators who've won by taking the path less traveled. In each episode, recovering journalist and content marketer Ashley Amber Saba interviews individuals who have prospered thanks to their genuinely unpopular opinions, despite warnings from naysayers, threats to their careers, and colossal obstacles. All rebels are welcome.
Hello and welcome to Unpopular Opinion. I'm your host, Ashley Sava, and this episode is brought to you by my friends at Audience Ups. Audience Ups is a done-for-you, content-led growth agency that offers case studies, blog posts, and full-service podcast production for professionals looking to launch a podcast like this one. Today, I'm joined by Ben Pines, Director of Content at AI21 Labs and Wordtune. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ashley, nice to be here.
I'm very happy to have you on today, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I find very interesting. Your unpopular opinion is that generative AI is great for writers, and the future for writers is bright. Unlike others who think that this is a kind of an end-all tool and that we're on doomsday, can you elaborate on why writers shouldn't be up in arms against these tools?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this today because my back was hurt, and I was using this automatic massager, and I was thinking it's kind of a similar technology if you think about it, because masseurs are still in operation and they're thriving, and people go to get their massage from real humans. And I think it's pretty similar because you have a tool that does that for free, and you can plug it in whenever. But it's interesting how technology changes. So I think that writers should be very optimistic, because these tools actually give them superpowers. So if you know how to use them, it can really save you time and up the quality of the content that you produce. That's one huge advantage. And the second one is that these tools take a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the work that writers don't really like to begin with, so they can focus on other better tasks and evolve their profession to the next level.
Where do you think all this fear is coming from?
Yeah. Good question. I think that I think basically most fear comes from not knowing enough about the technology, just hearing about it because it's everywhere, ChatGPT, generative AI, and writers are busy people like all professionals, and they don't have enough time to spend. And when a new technology comes in, it's easy to say like, okay, I'm just going to continue to work in the same method and not really try to learn this thing. But eventually it catches up to you. You can think of a similar breakthrough when the internet started in the 90s and early 2000s. So the right thing to do if you're thinking about your career is actually to spend some time learning about this and developing the right strategy to deal with this, so you can build a better profession for yourself. And just ignoring it, even if you get to know it and then decide to ignore it, it's better to learn about it and decide for yourself after you've been educated about it.
Can you catch us up on your background and how that might tie in with your unpopular take?
Yeah, so I've been in this industry of SEO and content marketing in various roles since 2006, actually. Amazing to think about it. And during that time, like in 2015, I started at Elementor, building their content, SEO, everything from content and YouTube and blog. And recently I started to do the same thing for Wordtune. And so I have a lot of experience, and for Wordtune, we're actually catering for writers, and we're also employing writers for our blog. So I've had some interesting conversation about how this technology is really being accepted by writers in general. Yeah.
You mentioned that now is kind of the time to double down on long text and quit spending so much time on TikTok videos. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
I'm not sure if yeah. I mean, TikTok is let me just articulate what I'm trying to say. It really depends where you're at. Okay, what's your take? I think TikTok could be a great way for you to gain reach and popularity, but nowadays it's really important to dive deep into sort of abilities of doing research and creating quality content. It's even more important than before because you have these AI machines that are able to produce fairly good results. And if you want to be better than AI and be someone wants to hire because of their expertise and knowledge, then you need to really, everything you're putting out there needs to be well researched and well developed. And a lot of this development and expertise actually comes from writing. So writing is a great way to actually gain knowledge over a topic. If you write about, pet food for half a year, you're gonna know more than most people about pet food.
And then not producing content, as you mentioned earlier, when we talked, not for the sake of just producing content, but having an actual plan and strategy behind why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that if you're thinking about how to adapt to the situation of generative AI, these amazing tools, I would say three things. So one we've mentioned is actually using the tools and getting to know them. The second thing we also kind of mentioned, which is building your expertise. Sort of being able to, because you're someone who's an expert, is able to write about the topic and discuss the topic at a very high level. And the other thing is really thinking about strategy and how you are able to think about content in a more strategic level while incorporating these tools inside.
I like it. You mentioned that you believe that SEO is a dying animal. Can you explain why you think that SEO might finally be on its way out?
Okay, so this has to do with how the SEO industry has evolved. Okay, so people think of it as like something that's always been here, but SEO is also new. Like before it started, I think 2006 or a bit before when Google was launched, only 2003, if I'm not mistaken. So the way content was built before, if you think about people consumed a lot of content from newspapers, and so really the journalistic method was usually what was done. So people researching and trying to find out what the truth is and trying to actually produce and publish news, something newsworthy, something that is new. And what happened with SEO, that I'm not talking about the entire SEO industry, but sort of the general way of doing SEO is you have a topic and then you kind of break it down to what's out there and trying to kind of repurpose or reiterate what was already said and build the content, sort of like breaking down the topic into its elements and just writing it out. This is not going to take it anymore. It's not going to be enough. And people have been saying for years, this is not the way to write. People like Jay Akanzo and content leaders have been talking about the fact that this is not a way to kind of create something that's of value, content of value. But now with these tools, you don't need writers to write this type of content, which in the beginning, it's not helpful because it's just regurgitating old news. So really now is the time to accept the fact that if you've committed to the writing life and the professional life of really content and marketing, then you need to think of other ways of writing, incorporate methods of journalists, and also think about how to grow your audience and how to get a following that is not reliant on SEO. So this could be social or email marketing or branding, like building your personal brand, starting a YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera.
So coming back to that a little bit, how do you plan for distribution when you think about content?
Yes. So, now is still, I think most content marketers are still using the same methods, and not a lot has changed. So you're thinking about your target audience, where they are and how you're going to reach them and how you're going to create this sort of engagement and even a mini community of followers. So this is kind of like this process is the same. You still can go to all the distribution channels, the normal ones like social media and PR and even SEO, but you need to take into account that the shift of forces, so to speak, are changing, and the channel that's going to suffer probably is SEO.
I get the feeling that that might be a positive change, though. Don't you agree?
I think it's been happening for a few years now. The recent change, the most recent upheaval was with TikTok. When you see Gen Z, instead of searching for Google, they either search for YouTube or they go straight ahead and search for it on TikTok, or I've heard marketers searching for LinkedIn. So nowadays people search for information in various ways. But what hasn't changed is that people rely a lot on word of mouth, and people like to follow people. This is not going to change. Like I'm not sure if people will start also following bots, but for sure people are going to continue to follow people, and more specifically experts. So if you're building your personal brand, this could be going to conferences, giving lectures, doing a webinar. There's a million ways, and all of them work determined of the audience. But this is how I basically think of distribution and how to kind of make it nowadays.
Can you think of a few tactical ways that content marketers can adapt their way of being to be more emulating a journalist approach?
Great question. Yeah. So I think in general, the first step is to think what you're writing, because you're trying to leverage AI for your writing. Okay. You're trying to make your writing faster, easier, more fun. So it's really, we haven't established yet the right process of, methodology of creating content for using AI. I'm sure people are already working on, new courses for Coursera and Udemy on those topics. But for now, you need to think, what am I creating? Is it social media post or web copy, or is it long form blog? For me personally, as director of content, I need to take care of creating blog posts and creating video scripts. So I've actually thought about this new process, and I've actually tried it out and was successful. So the first thing you need to, the first step I would say is to, when you're building, let's say, a blog post, for example, you need to have a main message, a main premise, a main idea. So this is super crucial because, you're going to an AI tool, you need to direct it, you need to be very clear. Otherwise, you're just going to go on a random direction. So that's actually the first step. And then after you kind of do that and create the outline, you can use a tool like Wordtune to sort of elaborate, expand on each of your points. So think about it. You have the skeleton of an article, and then which is, you've built it. This is what you want to do. You've created this outline. Then you can expand each of those points using Wordtune, using AI, and you can let's say define all the definitions that you have if a point requires it, or if you want to elaborate on a point. I've actually tried it and created an article. It took me a lot less time, and I actually got it to rank on Google.
Wow.
On the first page for a very competitive term. And the difference in the approach was that I wrote paragraph by paragraph. I didn't go to the AI tool and just gave it permission to write the whole article, because I still want to direct it. If you do that, if you go and just give ChatGPT a prompt, create a full article for me, I actually tried it. I went to ChatGPT, I told it, like, write me an article about getting a guest post. And it wrote the most benign and bland outline there is. There were points like, you should write, for SEO, you should write quality content. The most benign advice. So if you're a complete beginner, you haven't heard about this topic of guest posts in your life, and you've never, learned anything about content marketing, this might be helpful. But anyone with some experience is not going to find this useful. And I went back to an article that I liked a few years ago. It was written on the same topic, and I've tried to understand what is the difference. And really, the difference is when you're listening to someone and you want to learn this topic, you want to hear the experiences, the stories, and this is lacking, and it will always lack, because AI is basically reflecting our own minds, our own collective minds, but it's not an engine of real knowledge and experience. So there is still, again, this is the main idea. There is still room, if you're a writer, to just use these tools to make to streamline your process, but kind of keep the ownership and the steering wheel of your text.
I can kind of compare it to using a calculator in a lot of ways. Like when you're young, they don't want you to use a calculator at all because that's cheating. But then when the answers get a little bit more complex, if you do use a calculator, you still have to know the formula to put it in, to tune it, to make it go. I'm not good at math. I never was that good at math. But one of the things I've figured out is, as math got more complex when I was growing up, me just having a calculator wasn't enough to get me there. You have to have a way to tune what you're doing and understand what's behind it to make it effective. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit like that.
It's a great analogy. And there's so much benefits of owning what you write, but there's something else. Like, as humans, there's a bias that, the concept of biases, psychological biases has been researched. It's been developed by Tversky and Kahneman, these researchers in the 70s. And one of the biases is the anchor bias. Okay, the anchor bias is when you're presented with information, we as humans tend to accept this information just by seeing it. So if we're in a meeting and I'm trying to sell you something and I name that a price, this is the anchor bias. We're going to use this price as the truth, as reference. So what's the relevance here? when we're using AI just to give us the answer, just without, as humans, we're prone to accept it without any without challenging it. So we need to be aware of these human fallacies, basically, and sort of protect ourselves. And the way to protect ourselves is really to develop the right workflows, like I mentioned, like have a clear direction, make your own points, or at least decide on your own points. Be very skeptical about every prompt that you get. Ask yourself, like actively ask yourself, is this true? Maybe, is this not true? Try to contradict it. And then you're much more likely to just write things that are useful and not just truth, but not just true, but also useful.
What's your opinion on the necessity that content should be created by subject matter experts to be of value?
Yeah, of course, this really depends on what you are talking about. So if you are writing content on large language models, you should know, you should be an expert. Like, definitely, you should be an expert in some of the fields, medical fields, etc. Having said that, two things that are, I think, important to take into account. One, remember the way journalists have been working for forever. Journalists are able to take a concept and really research it and find their own truth and find insights just from the process of exploration and curiosity. That's one thing. Second thing is there's a new term. I think it's called the building in public, BIP.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the practice of sharing stories about how products and services are developed with the aim of inspiring people. So, I think this is great and amazing. And the reason why it's important is because if you're a beginner writer, you shouldn't be kind of, it shouldn't deter you from creating content, because so many stars nowadays have been born overnight. We're talking about either in social media and TikTok. So they are not subject matter experts. And I wouldn't take everyone as an example, because you have a lot of people who are kind of, you feel like they shouldn't be so sure of what they're doing. But some people generally share their feelings, their kind of insights, their personal take, their experiences, and they produce content that has value, because you don't have to be that sort of expert to help people and to inspire people.
Do you think that fine-tuning your interview skills might be a way that you can get your foot in the door into being a very good generalist without having to be an expert in any field?
I think interviewing is, I think, like, there are, in this content creation, maybe there are two main ways of building content. One is kind of when you're interviewing, you're in conversation. It's not easy. There's endless things you can learn about active listening and about finding questions and charisma and et cetera. However, there is an alternate route of kind of writing alone, which is, I think that possibly the best thing would be to incorporate the two, because I really think that writing alone does have its own advantages, if it makes sense.
Like what? I'm just curious. What kind of things do you think are better to do on your own than involving other people in?
Sometimes following through on a deep thought or an insight, and it could be even something professionally, if you're writing about a new strategy or a new skill. Sometimes it helps to work alone. I think Stephen King wrote about this in his book, that you sometimes need to shut the door until you reach that draft before you show it to people. Because once you show it to people, it's its own thing. Like, it has an effect on you. So I think, I don't know, a lot of, for me, I'm kind of, I have these, I think both of these sides of also an appreciation of this introvert side where you sit, you read, you kind of think of things yourself. But then, yeah, it's very important to also share it and get feedback. So that's why I think both is important.
When you've come out publicly, because after all, this is unpopular opinion, and shared your thoughts on AI and how we shouldn't be afraid of it, what kind of feedback have you got?
Yeah, I think most, this comes down to what we mentioned before. I think there's a lot of confusion about this technology. And so what I've in my conversation with writers, a lot of them haven't really gotten a lot of experience with it. And if they did, it was with ChatGPT, where you get a prompt and then you give it the prompt and then you get the whole answer. And when they see this, it's not something they relate to. Why? First of all, because it levels down their ability to write and everyone else's. Like a 5-year-old can use the same prompt, so they don't have an edge. They're really amazing skill that they may have developed for years. Kind of, it feels like it no longer is helpful. And what I've been trying to say is, like, there's a different way to think of AI, not as a replacement, but as an assistant. So it really forced us, what happened, this technology forced us to think again about what is writing. Is it just finding some tips, like finding top tips and sharing it? Or is there something deeper, something more human that we need, that we need to develop? And at Wordtune, we actively think about not just the technology and what it can do, but how can it join the current process of writing and leverage it. So I've also had some feedback from a friend who is using it actually for web copy, and he's saying, I prefer to use Wordtune just because if I was a complete beginner, maybe it would have helped me to just send the prompt and get the answer. But with Wordtune, I actually get alternatives, so I can tweak and fine tune the messaging. So I'm the one who is choosing the answer. That's one thing. And second thing, I can really get into a very high resolution of the quality of the answer.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I've heard a lot of mixed feedback on ChatGPT, exactly like what you were talking about. And I think that people look at it as a machine that could pump out a lot of content a lot quicker than they can, even if it might not be of the quality. And that is a little intimidating if you're not maybe in a company, especially that appreciates more human angled content. Maybe they're just looking for that. But I've had a lot of discussions with people in content about particularly about ChatGPT lately on this. It's been a lot of mixed feedback. If you could give a couple of quick tips for people on how they could take advantage of generative AI, what would you give them?
Good question. Let me think about it. Yeah. So basically, what I would suggest, if you're an aspiring writer, I would really think about, again, having a specific expertise that you're working on. This is both of the kind of content you want to create and also possibly the industry, and start thinking about how I can build new workflows and new ways of incorporating this technology into the current workflow, and seeing what sort of products come out, because it's going, I mean, There's been really a plethora of products coming out recently that use this technology either to create, videos or images or text. So now is the time to kind of aspire high and build your career. There's never been a better time to become a professional writer, I think.
I like the positive outlook on that. I would like to ask you, which I've been asking all my guests who have come on, to debunk an unpopular opinion. That, in my case, that means something on your feed that you've noticed that people are maybe tagging as unpopular, but maybe isn't. Can you think of any examples?
I just today I saw a really interesting opinion, like popular opinion I saw on LinkedIn that I'm eager to debunk. Okay.
Ooh, I can't wait.
So recently I was thinking about how to create sort of a content distribution method. Like, let's say you're a content creator, you have a lot you need to take care of. So you need to churn out, videos and blog posts and social media posts and reels, etc. So it's really hard to think how you can manage to do that entire thing. And so the popular opinion I want to debunk, I just saw a LinkedIn post just sharing, okay, this is how you can create 100 videos, like 2 months worth of content in 2 hours, 100 videos. You take, you create, I don't know, like dozens of tweets from it. What that opinion means, basically, you're going to take one insight, one piece of content, one premise. You remember we talked about premise, one premise, and just multiply it thousands of times. You're going to just create junk. And with AI, it's the easiest way. You can do that. But I really implore you not to do that, because it's going to be detrimental, not only for your audience, but also for you, because no one is going to recommend you to anyone, and no one is going to, you're not going to win the word of mouth. And the worst thing is, because your whole focus was on turning this one insight into thousands, you're not going to have enough insights. So the alternative I suggest is, one, think of a specific and limited number of things. Let's say for 2 weeks, I'm going to produce one main video, like, I don't know, 5-minute, 10-minute video. And from that, I'm going to create some reels, like 30-minute reels. And what's amazing is, when you're researching, we talked about the importance of researching. When you're researching and learning about that topic that you're writing about and making the big video of the week, you're going to land on a lot of other ideas. So just, you need to find a way to catch those ideas that are going to come naturally, because you're researching, you're reading, suddenly you say, oh, this could be also a LinkedIn post. This could be so you're limited. You're not going to create, hundreds of, content pieces, but you are going to repurpose and create enough. And it's going to be like a positive spiral, like a, the opposite of vicious cycle, like a, I don't know, generative cycle.
Yeah.
Angelic cycle. And it's going to help you become an expert, be a better, more knowledgeable expert, produce more content, get growth, get an audience, get the word of mouth, etc., etc., etc. And this angelic cycle is going to be really what I recommend.
And much better than junk getting perpetuated, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Just an echo chamber of junk.
Yeah, I don't want that either. Well, where can people go if they want to find out more about you or what you're up to?
Yes, so they can follow me on LinkedIn, Ben Pines, and they can also follow Wordtune's YouTube channel and blog, which talks a lot about kind of reading, writing these new strategies of using AI to do that. So I highly recommend you follow us.
All right. Well, hey, Ben, it was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thanks. It was great to be here.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening to Unpopular Opinion. This episode was produced by Audience Ops, a content-led growth agency. If you're looking for help launching a podcast, Audience Ops handles all the legwork, so you can focus on providing the subject matter expertise. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow Ashley's show on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube.